A very good afternoon to all. We are here for the webinar on World Health Day being organized by IIP Women's Cell Kanchipuram District, Tamil Nadu. We are live on IIP India YouTube channel. I request all to subscribe to this channel to get regular notification for webinars. Now I request the organizing team to please take over.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, all. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Pradeepa from Indian Association of Physiotherapists, Women's Cell, Tamil Nadu, Kanchipuram District Coordinator. Sorry. I would like to welcome you all to the webinar on this World Health Day, 75th birthday of World Health Organization. The theme is Health for All. The upcoming webinar is Health and Fitness. First of all, I would like to thank our mentors. First of all, I would like to thank our mentors, Dr. Sanjeev K. Jha sir, IAP President, and Dr. Ruchivashni ma'am, IAP Treasurer and National Head of IAPWC, and Dr. Janani ma'am, our Tamil Nadu State Coordinator, and Dr. Radha Balachandra ma'am, our Joint Coordinator, for giving us this opportunity to conduct this webinar. I would like to welcome our resource persons, Dr. Sridevi ma'am, Dr. Angelin ma'am, and Mrs. Archana for enhancing this webinar. First of all, I would like to welcome Dr. S. Sridevi ma'am, MPT Cardiopulmonary Sciences and Associate Professor in Sri Ramachandra Faculty of Physiotherapy, Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Ma'am has a vast experience of UG teaching experience of 23 years and PG teaching experience of 15 years and research experience of 17 years. I would think it would take a day for me to say about ma'am. Ma'am has done many research projects related to diabetic patients, chronic kidney diseases, hemodialysis patients, and ma'am has been in the area expertise as cardio and pulmonary rehabilitation, renal rehabilitation, cancer rehabilitation, and has been in teaching profession for the past 25 years. Ma'am has a wide clinical experience in NABH and JCI accredited hospital. Ma'am has been an active team member for physiotherapy in developing pulmonary rehabilitation center at Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research, deemed to be university, and developing renal rehabilitation at Srihar. Ma'am is currently pursuing her PhD. Few of her research projects will go through. A study to find the correlation between 6 minutes walk distance and blood glucose level in diabetic patients. From 2013, ma'am has carried a vast experience on research projects and currently to assess respiratory muscle strength in hemodialysis patients and predictors of 6-minute walk distance in hemodialysis patients. Ma'am has won many records and recognitions. Ma'am has won TMA PI Endowment Award for the best poster presentation in colloquial on exercise science and health promotion conducted by SOAS Manipal University, Manipal. Ma'am has won the first place in paper presentation in UNESCO chair in bioethics Asia Pacific Division International Conference and on bioethics in health sciences in 2019. Have presented papers and posters in various international and national conferences and have guided UG and PG students for paper and poster presentations. Other achievements, peer reviewer in SIP journal, and involved a sub-investigator in clinical trial in heart failure underway as a multi-center trial of ICMR. Guided more than 20 research projects at PG level and more than 12 publications in index journals. We are really proud to welcome you, ma'am, for our webinar.
Thank you, Pratibha ma'am. I take this opportunity to thank IAP Women's Cell for giving me this opportunity. I thank Pratibha ma'am, Janani ma'am, and Chandralekha ma'am for giving me this opportunity. And I wish all of you a happy World Health Day. By the end of the day, we have nothing but ourselves and our health. Wishing all a very happy World Health Day. Can I share my screen, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, you can start, ma'am.
Good afternoon, all. I'm here to talk on commit to be active, commit to be fit. As movement therapist, I believe like you have to be physically active. Only if you're going to be physically active, then you can be committed to be fit. So here I'm going to tell you about what are the effects of physical activity and what are the ill effects of being physically inactive. So with this, we'll just go for the presentation. Just a minute. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. You can make it full screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. 7th April of each year, from 1950, it has been celebrated as World Health Day. And there is one more thing to add to this World Health Day. In 1948, WHO was formed on the 7th April. And to proud to say, this is the 75th anniversary year of World Health Organization. And if you're going to look back at the opportunity that WHO has given for the world and public health successes, and it has improved quality of life across the world for the past 7 decades. It is also an opportunity to motivate action to tackle the health challenges of today and tomorrow. I feel like one of the most important challenges that this world is facing now is this physical activity. Physical inactivity is, it's not that we are seeing physical inactivity among the older adults. It is being mainly seen in young adults. We have got so much of, to put it, the health triangle, mental, physical, and social well-being is being considered as a state of good health. And whenever this balanced health triangle, somewhere if you're going to miss it out, like your mental health or if your social health is going down, then the overall health of the individual is going to go down. You should be wondering why I have put this picture. There is something I have put with laptops and mobile phones. So that is about the digital well-being. This digital health is very, very important in this particular era for us to have good health. That is to have good mental health, good physical health, and good social health. Only if you're going to keep your digital health under check, then you can have all these, your mental, physical, and social health at par. Why? Because these days, everything we get it in a click. Like if you want to get, say, medicines, if you want to get groceries, just we do have so many apps that has come up. Everything you're getting it. You're not going out of your house. You're not doing any activity as such. You sit and you do the work. So I thought like we can put this digital health also into this. Digital health is going to improve your mental, physical, and the social health and the well-being of oneself. So help yourself, help others, let the others help you, and you remain active, keep your digital health under check to have good amount of physical activity. So physical inactivity. To start with, what physical inactivity is and what is the ill effect of this physical inactivity. Physical inactivity is the fourth leading cause of death worldwide, and it has been declared as pandemic in 2012. And we are all just aware about COVID-19 pandemic. We are just unaware about this pandemic, which has been declared in 2012. How many of us are aware of this? This is a silent killer. This physical inactivity is a silent killer. It is affecting the well-being of the individual. It is causing so many diseases. But this physical inactivity is not being known. We are more, next pandemic which came up in 2019, COVID-19, that added to the problem of the previous existing pandemic, which was there already in 2012. 7 years, the world was facing one pandemic, one huge silent killer. And added to that, we had this COVID-19, which added, it became a tale of two pandemics. It changed the global trend. Some people in the world were active. They wanted to have, they wanted to be active and they were doing physical activity. But we got this COVID-19. In COVID-19, which made even the active person to become inactive, and the sedentary behavior of the individual increased. So it became two pandemics put together. Somehow, as movement therapists, as physiotherapists, we need to educate the population about the importance of physical activity. So this tale of two pandemics, COVID-19 made people more inactive. You were there under lockdown. You weren't allowed to go out. And people, those were already being sedentary, they became more sedentary. So the sedentariness increased. And you know, like COVID-19 can cause cardiovascular disorder, including myocardial injury, arrhythmias, acute coronary syndrome, and venous thromboembolism. And your physical inactivity also can cause all these things. Physical inactivity can cause cardiovascular disorder. It can cause myocardial injury. It can cause arrhythmias. So now you are facing two problems. Some people should have had COVID-19 and they should have had this cardiovascular disorder. Added to that, this physical inactivity. Put together, we are facing a huge threat for cardiovascular diseases. Now, what is the physiological basis of physical activity? I keep telling you have to be active, you have to be active. What does this physical activity really do? There should be some physiology behind it, right? There should be something like this physical activity is bringing some changes in your system, in your physiology. So this was a study which was done in 2014, says regular physical activity are protective against all cause mortality. It can be of anything. It can be a mortality of any cause. It is protective against all cause mortality through suppressing pro-inflammatory cytokine production. So whenever there is going to be any of the disease process, there is going to be a pro-inflammatory cytokine production that is going to be there. Some inflammatory reactions are going to be there. Your physical activity is going to suppress this. It is going to suppress your pro-inflammatory cytokine production. It is going to enhance anti-inflammatory mediator. There is going to be development of antioxidants, and it is promoting fibrinolytic activity. Fibrinosis is not going to happen. So thereby, this regular physical activity, it is going to be protective. It is going to have an effect on all your organs. It is going to have an effect on all the organs, and it is going to be protective against all cause mortality. And coming to physical activity has got a very direct relationship with the cardiovascular diseases. What happens in cardiovascular, in atherosclerosis? We are always much worried about atherosclerosis, the atheroma formation. The absence of regular exercise may increase monocyte platelet aggregates, which are cellular mediators involved in atherosclerosis. You know, like in atherosclerosis, there is going to be platelet aggregation. With regular physical activity, it is being said like this platelet aggregations is going to come down. While you are going to regularly walk, some walking activity you do as a form of physical activity, then that will inhibit such increase in platelet aggregation. So your physical activity levels are going to have an effect on atherosclerosis. It is going to have an effect on all-cause mortality. So there is some physiological changes that is happening at the cellular level, which is going to be really helpful. Physical activity is going to be there for the well-being of the person. So put together, to summarize, the mechanisms that has been proposed to contribute to enhance myocardial perfusion in response to exercise training are: there's going to be partial correction of endothelial dysfunction. So endothelial function is going to be corrected. There's a partial correction also that is happening. There's going to be good amount of collateral formation. Even though if there is going to be some stenosis, it is going to be there in the coronary arteries. If you're going to be active, there's going to be good amount of collateral formation that is going to be there, which is going to be helpful, which is going to contribute to the myocardial perfusion. There can be regression of coronary stenosis. Enormous amount of studies are going on this, the regression of coronary stenosis and vasculogenesis. How the physical activity is causing regression of coronary stenosis, vasculogenesis, and blended platelet activation. As I told you in the previous slide, there's going to be the activation of the platelets. There's going to be blended response to the platelets. So thereby, there's going to be enhanced myocardial perfusion in response to exercise training as well as in response to physical activity. So physical activity is going to be helpful in the prevention and the treatment of coronary artery disease. So if I say of physical activity, we should know what are the domains. How you can be physically active. It's not that you have to do just walking with that, you have to be physically active. It's not that we are going to define you as physically active just by your walking. You can divide, like you can have the various domains that is there. First, it's going to be occupational, work related. So involving the manual labor task. So in their occupation, they are active. They're doing walking, or they're carrying and lifting objects, they're walking around. Your occupation is making you to be physically active. So that you can consider. Domestic, the household activities, the housework you do, the yard work you do, taking care of children, the other course which you do at home, your self-care activities, shopping. Shopping in the sense like you go by walk or go by a cycle, that is going to be considered. Other than that, and other incidental domestic activities you can consider. Transportation and utilitarian. Purpose of going somewhere. How do you walk from same before and all, like if you have to go buy something from a nearby shop, when you've been small children, when you've been asked to go, you go by walk and you get it. But these days, these children nowadays, they don't want to go by walk. They either go by a bike or they don't prefer walking, even bicycling. So that is also slightly coming down. So when you're going to think about transportation, think about walking to nearby shops, bicycling, climbing, descending stairs to public transportation, standing while riding transportation. All these are going to be form of your physical activity. Leisure time activity. In Indian scenario, if you're going to say that as leisure time activity, most of the time it is going to be watching TV. But that is not as your leisure time activity. What the WHO has given us, leisure time activity is discretionary or recreational activities involving yourself in some sort of sports, hobbies, exercise, or it can be a volunteer work. So we have many times we have collected to find out the physical activity level among students when we used the global physical activity questionnaires and international physical activity questionnaires, which is speaking about this recreational activity. We found that most of the time they answer no for that. Very few students are being involved in sports activities. So for them, they'll have the leisure time activity. Otherwise, most of the time, we don't have this physical activity domain of leisure time activity. We need to create one. We need to have some hobbies, which is going to be our leisure time activity, which is going to be the physical activity domain. And what should be the physical activity intensity? Many times people will ask you like how much I should walk, what should be the intensity, how whether it should be moderate, whether it should be hard, very hard. You can have that in terms of the heart rate reserve. You can have that in terms of maximal heart rate percentage. You can have that in terms of rating of perceived exertion or in terms of minutes. When you're going to teach the patient, it is it is going to be easy if you're going to teach them in terms of heart rate reserve, the maximal heart rate minus resting heart rate. And you can have that in percentage, whether you want to do that as maximal, submaximal, or low level. So tell them that they have to do the exercises, they have to do walking in such a way that there should be an increase in their heart rate. There should be an increase in the heart rate. How much increase in the heart rate should be there? That you can tell them with this heart rate reserve formula. So it's not that being physically active. There was something discussion, structured physical activity. Many times we say the patient that they have to be active, but how active they are. Tell them, educate them about the structured physical activity. Structured physical activity is going to be more beneficial. They are active. Let them do that in a correct way. So we can have structured physical activity. So this is to tell about the classification of physical activity intensity. You can have that as moderate, hard, very hard, or maximum. This is World Health Organization physical activity recommendation. So the adults 18 to 64 years should do at least 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic physical activity. 150 to 300 minutes. You take like every day, at least you should be doing it. Say if it is going to be 300 minutes, 300, just leave Sunday, 6, at least for 50 minutes, you have to do some sort of moderate intensity aerobic physical activity. Or you can go for 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity. You can have a combination of moderate and vigorous intensity activity throughout the week. You can have accumulation of physical activity. Do that like every day. One day you do moderate intensity, next you can have the vigorous intensity, and you can have a combination of both, and you can accumulate your physical activity. And most important thing is, should limit the amount of time spent being sedentary. How many hours in a day you sit? How many hours in a day you sit? This is when you're going to think and you're going to go back and just realize how many hours you sit in a day. And if it is going to be for students, they sit in the classroom for 8 hours. You sit for your transport. Other than that, for watching TV and reading books, something you sit. In 24 hours, most of the time you sit. Being sedentary, sitting. So if your work is making you to sit, you break it. Replace sedentary time with physical activity of any intensity. So you just get up, I just walk around, do some activity, and then you come sit and then continue with your work. So replacing sedentary time with physical activity of any intensity is going to provide health benefits. So this was one study, a systematic review, which I came across. Association of leisure time physical activity with cardiovascular mortality. A systematic review and meta-analysis of 44 prospective cohort studies, which says like high intensity leisure time physical activity has more obvious cardiovascular benefit than those of moderate intensity leisure time physical activity. There should be some leisure time physical activity. And if you're going to have leisure time physical activity, definitely it is going to be helpful with your cardiovascular system. So there is an association of leisure time physical activity with cardiovascular mortality. And it's not that your whatever leisure time activity was there beneficial only in your middle age. This particular study was quite interesting, which showed that leisure time physical activity across adulthood and biomarkers of cardiovascular disease at the age of 60 to 64. This was a prospective cohort study, which has shown like when there is going to be greater accumulation of leisure time physical activity during your adulthood, when you have been 30 and 40, you did some sort of leisure time physical activity, that is becoming favorable even at the age of 60 to 64. So throughout, if you're going to have that, if you're going to have a maintenance of long time, maintenance of leisure time physical activity may provide greater benefits even at the later age. So start practicing it, be across your adulthood from the age of 36. That is what this prospective cohort study has done. From 36, they found like till 64, they found like a person who has been active had a lesser amount of cardiovascular, the biomarkers of cardiovascular disease at the age of 60 and 64 has been less, and it shows that there's a greater benefit for cardiovascular disease. So though I say that there should be moderate intensity leisure time activity, vigorous intensity activity, there has been one study which showed like even if you're going to do a minimum amount of recommended amount, even that also had significant lower risk of coronary heart disease. I have put that as the intensity. You have to do 40%, 50%, 60%. Some people have done lower than that. Those people also had significantly lower risk of coronary heart disease. To say that you do some leisure time physical activity, some sort of leisure time physical activity, either it is going to be of moderate intensity or high intensity or lower than the minimum recommended, but that is going to be beneficial. Engaging in the equivalent of 300 minutes per week of moderate intensity leisure time physical activity had 20% lower risk. At higher level of physical activity, relative risk were modestly lower. People who are physically active at levels lower than the minimum recommended amount also had significantly lower risk of coronary heart disease. It means to say that they didn't do that 300 minutes, but they did some sort of physical activity. Those people also had a lower risk of coronary heart disease. So this means to say that something is good than nothing. Do at least minimal physical activity. So that was all which has been put into the, which was there in the other countries. I just wanted to look in how is it in India? What is the Indian scenario? So we are Indians, how active we are, Just I wanted to look in for that. So these are the studies which I came across. Leisure time exercise, including as much as 35 to 40 minutes per day of brisk walking, was protective for the cardiovascular heart disease, and sedentary lifestyles were possibly associated with the coronary heart disease. Given limited sources for care of coronary heart disease in India and the important role of physical exercise in disease risk in urban India, improvement in physical activity should be promoted. This particular study wanted to find out how was the risk of coronary heart disease, especially in urban India. There is so much of modernization that we have got now. There is, everybody have become a tech savvy for everything. We have everything. Just with phone, we can get everything. So there is so much of physical inactivity that has come up in urban India. So there should be improvement in physical activity. We need to have some promotions that should be there in order to improve the physical activity level, especially in urban India. So of leisure time physical activity of 35 to 45 minutes per day of brisk walking was protective for the coronary heart disease. So every day in 24 hours, you can take half an hour for yourself, right? We can have me time of half an hour. That me time of half an hour can be spent for this leisure time exercise, leisure time activity, going for a brisk walking. So that is going to be protective. It is going to be protective for your cardiovascular health. So this is important. We need to improve physical activity. Promotion of physical activity in urban India is much needed. A large percentage of people in India are inactive, with fewer than 10% engaging in recreational physical activity. So to see this, this was the result from ICMR Indian V study, which was in phase 1. They have declared the results. And to see this, it's really heartening. So you see, less than 10% are engaging in recreational physical activity. So 90% of people in India are inactive. Therefore, urgent steps needs to be initiated to promote physical activity to stem. There's another epidemic. I was speaking about the pandemic of physical inactivity and COVID-19 pandemic. And in India, we have got two epidemics, diabetes and obesity. It is being said like every other Indian is diabetic. Diabetic and obesity is tremendously increasing in India. And one of the major reasons for diabetes and obesity is going to be physical inactivity. So there should be some urgent steps that has to be initiated. As physiotherapists, as movement therapists, we need to educate our patients about the importance of physical activity. We need to promote this physical activity among our students. So we can overcome this. We can overcome this twin epidemic of diabetes and obesity in India. Prevalence of insufficient physical activity was found to be high among Indian adults and necessitates promotion of leisure time physical activity with special attention to women. I just wanted to see like how it is in women. So there's a study here which is telling that, which was there in 2022, which says like there is a need for a special attention to be given to women and travel and work related activity among urban residents, because in urban population, the urban residents, they don't go by walk or bicycle. Most of the time we travel either by a two-wheeler, four-wheeler, and we use public transports. We have metro. So all those things, there is a need, a special attention need to be given to women, and we have to think about this travel and work related activity among urban residents. The study determined that residential status, marital status, occupational status, economical status, rise blood pressure, and central obesity were significantly associated with physical activity. So your occupation, your place of living, all these things are going to determine your physical activity. So have some sort of leisure time physical activity, and we need to pay special attention to Indian women. Physical inactivity with the components of metabolic syndrome and the coronary artery disease in urban South Indian population. There was a very big association, metabolic X syndrome, diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, obesity, everything put together. We have that metabolic X syndrome. So this was done in Chennai Urban Population Study, CUSP study, which was done by Mohan V. et al. He wanted to find out the association of physical inactivity with components of metabolic syndrome and coronary artery disease. And they found out that physical inactivity is associated with components of metabolic syndrome and coronary artery disease in urban South Indian population. Lifestyle changes focusing on increasing physical activity would help to prevent this exploding epidemic of metabolic syndrome and coronary artery disease in India. We have the pandemic of physical inactivity, and we have the epidemic of diabetes, obesity leading to metabolic syndrome. So we need to work on this about promoting physical activity among Indians. The study reported from 13 studies in India by Shah and Mathur in 2010 showed lower physical activity among both sexes of urban population compared to rural ones. Because if you're going to consider in rural population of India, still because of their occupation, they are having some amount of vigorous intensity activity. So their occupation is making them to be vigorously active, and the transportation still in many places, they do walk. So if they don't have a proper public transport, then they have to walk. So that's why in rural population, there is some amount of physical activity when compared to urban Indian population. In urban Indian population, because of all this modernization, and we do have so much of sophistication, both in terms of occupation and transportation, that is putting the urban population people into physical inactivity. So there is a need for promotion of physical activity among urban population. Physical activity and mortality. There exists an independent association between physical activity and long-term vital prognosis, with a 10% total mortality decrease for an increase of 10 METs hour per week. If we are going to increase 10 METs hour per week, there is a decrease of 5% of total mortality. You can achieve this 10 METs by being active, by going for a brisk walking, having that as 45 minutes to 1 hour. Improve your physical activity. So if you're going to increase that 10 hours per week, then there is a reduction of 5% of total mortality. All-cause mortality is going to come down by 5%. Physical activity is a risk factor for mortality, regardless of whether it is going to be men, women, old, very old, smokers, non-smokers, lean, overweight, otherwise healthy or unhealthy. So everybody needs physical activity, regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless of other status. Just because the person is lean, it's not that they can be physically inactive. Physical activity is needed for everyone. So physical inactivity is going to be the major risk factor for mortality. So this particular slide, which is telling about the physical activity in the prevention and treatment of coronary artery disease, which shows, like, to put it comprehensive, regular physical activity is going to have a negative effect on obesity. Regular physical activity is going to have a negative effect on blood pressure, arterial hypertension. Regular physical activity is going to have a positive effect on cardiorespiratory fitness. It is going to have a negative effect on diabetes mellitus. It is going to have negative effect on dyslipidemia. If no physical activity, then obesity is going to have positive effect on mortality. Arterial hypertension is going to have a positive effect on mortality. Diabetes, dyslipidemia, these are all going to become the risk factors for mortality. Cardiovascular all-cause mortality is going to increase if you are not going to have physical activity. It is going to cause all these problems: obesity, diabetes, dyslipidemia, metabolic X syndrome. It is going to reduce your cardiorespiratory fitness, leading to all-cause mortality. All-cause mortality due to cardiovascular dysfunction. So you need to be physically active. And what is the worldwide trend in insufficient activity from 2001 to 16? There was a pooled analysis of 358 population-based survey with 1.5 million participants. So the interpretation from this study was that if current trends continue, then 2025 global physical activity target will not be met. So WHO has said, like, there should be an increase in the global physical activity by 2025. But if the current trend of a physical inactivity is going to persist, then you will not be able to meet that target of WHO. Policies have to be created in order to increase population levels of physical activity, and that has to be the priority, and it has to be scaled up urgently. So that is the interpretation that we get from this particular study. So there is a need, there should be some policy decision that has to be made, and we need to work on improving the physical activity among our Indian population. So this is what is the 2018 to 2030. What is the aim for WHO? It is, the goal is to reduce physical inactivity by 2025 by 10%, by 2030 by 15%. More active people for a more healthier world. As physiotherapists, as movement therapists, we have to emphasize on physical activity among our patients and among our students, so that let's be active. Let's be active every day, everywhere, and you see to that you do some sort of physical activity. And for this, to put it as digital wellness. Digital wellness is important. These are all what I have put on the right side is a pillar of healthy living. Proper diet, good amount of exercise, meditation, positive psychology, always having a positive thoughts, social connection, self-management, spiritual and religion, independent and healthy aging. This is the pillars of healthy living. Added to this, let's have digital wellness. Delete apps that you don't need. There are apps that where you're tempted to waste time on. So you can make use of that time for being physically active. You can go for a walking instead of spending time in certain apps. Like if you're going to go into the Facebook, or if you're going to get into WhatsApp, sometimes you spend time. No? You can have your own time for all those things, but you select half an hour at least for being active. Boundaries, put clear boundaries in what places you will not use mobile. That is a form of digital wellness. Limit your screen time. Limit your screen time. No or limited screens. Take regular screen break at work. Move for a few minutes every hour. It's not only for the screen break. If you're going to sit in one place for more than 2 or 3 hours, see to that you're breaking it. Breaking it, move around. Move for a few minutes every hour. So your sedentariness, then you will not say that you have been sitting for 10 hours, 12 hours. You took a break in between. Take a break in between. Move for a few minutes every hour. Take time away from the screen weekly. Decide, like for this day, this Saturday, I'm not going to use, I'm not going to be using any of these apps. I'm going to have a screen away time. Take time away from the screens weekly. No screens an hour before bed and in the bedroom. That is going to give you good amount of sleep. Having good sleep is going to improve your health status. So digital wellness is also important. That is also is going to be one of the pillar of healthy living. This digital wellness in turn, it's going to help you out to improve your physical activity. There are so many apps that is coming up. You can make use of those apps to count the number of steps you are walking every day. 10,000 steps in a day, then you're going to be called as being physically active. You can make use of apps. There are apps for that, which is going to be helping out in your physical activity, which is going to help you out in your healthy status. So we can make use of that. So digital wellness is also important for having a healthy living. So I conclude saying that commit to being more active this month. Start today. Start today. Start this hour. After this, you try being active. Being active. Commit to be active. That commitness to being active will improve your fitness status. Let us start from today for being active. So that is going to lead to happiness. That is going to be the action for happiness. So be active. Be happy. Wishing all again a happy World Health Day. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
you so much, ma'am. Thank you for this wonderful informational presentation, ma'am.
Thank you,
Pratibha. We'll have the questions at the end of the webinar, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to invite Dr. Chandralekha Swaminathan, ma'am, the subcoordinator of Kanchipuram District Indian Association of Physiotherapists Women's Cell, to address our resource person.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I am proud to be a part of team in IAP WBC, and my sincere thanks to all my mentors. I would like to welcome Mrs. Archana R, RCA Certified Clinical Psychologist, Mrs. Archana ma'am, working experienced clinical psychologist at NIMHANS, Bangalore since October 2022. Ms. Archana worked in the multidisciplinary team in patient care, supervising and guiding MPhil psychology trainees in clinical areas. Ma'am has been working as an assistant professor in psychology 2018 to 2019 at Jyoti Nivas College at Bangalore. Ma'am has worked as a clinical psychologist trainee in 2015 to 2017 at NIMHANS. Ma'am has worked as a counseling psychologist at TINS VHS in 2014 to 2015. Ma'am has was research experience. Her studies about peer review for a journal psychological studies and her present paper in psychometric investigation of cyberbullying state in Indian content. Ma'am has completed a thesis on the cognitive correlates of internet addiction among the users, an exploratory study, and also completed a thesis study on autism and self-esteem among orthopedically handicapped and non-disabled young adults. Ma'am has done number of paper publications, more than 14, regarding the psychological issues. Mrs. Archana has completed her MPhil psychology at NIMHANS. Now she is practicing as a private consultant. My pleasure to welcoming you, ma'am. Our World Health Day webinar. Over to you, Archana, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chandrakala. It's been a wonderful opportunity for me to part of this panel. And I really thank IAPWC too for invite me as one of the guest speaker for this webinar. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Please let me know if everyone can look into it. Is it visible for all?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pratibha. Thank you, Dr. Chandrakala. First of all, for everyone, it's a World Health Day and happy wishes to all of you. And I congratulate Dr. Sridevi also for enhancing the importance of physical well-being, mainly like how leisure activities are important in our life. To highlight it, and for the well-being, physical activity is also one of the main aspects that is required for our mental health. So I really appreciate her wonderful presentation as well. So today I'm going to talk about the conquest for well-being, which means like I'm going to talk about our mental health per se, and mainly to focus on our how can we care our mind, body, and spirit. So the overview of my presentation would be mainly with regard to the mental health, giving you a brief overview about mental health disorders, and how can you take care of your mental health, which is most important for all of us, especially for you people like when we are working with our difficult clients, it's more important. So I'm going to give an overview on it. And let me know if the slide slow is going as well. Okay. So I would like to start with the quote. It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. As Aristotle mentioned that how the physical health is even more important, even the mental health also is required. Like especially when we are stressed is the time where we actually see, okay, what's happening to us? How are we stressed? Physically, yes, I'm so stressed. What about mentally? What am I going to do with it? How am I going to get stable enough? Or better things that we have to highlight in our in a critical situations. So I start with this quote. So it's during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. So what is mental health? So is it a state of mind, or is it a state of our body, or is it a state of spirit? It's actually linked all of us. So our mental health is connected. It's actually mind and body are very well connected to have an adequate mental health. So just like how when we have a fever, how our mind is not able to work. Similarly, when we are stressed or when we are occupied with certain mental health issues, our body also sometimes will not work. So mind and body are very well connected in the aspect of mental health. So it's just not a state of mind. I would give you the definition according to WHO. What is a mental health? It's basically an overview of mind and body together and how we handle the situations pretty well. So according to WHO, mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope up with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. So WHO highlights that mental health is basically our own mental well-being, which helps us to cope up in the stressful life, realize what are the abilities that we have, which also includes our strengths per se, like our support system per se, like, and how are we using our own strengths and our own approach to handle the mental well-being, and which is again, how are we, when we learn to handle the stressful situations, how are we equipped to use that experience to the other stressful lives as well, and how as a person we are contributing to our own communities. So that's what the WHO's definition of mental health. Sorry. So as I mentioned that mental health is an integral part of us. And so it helps us to make necessary decisions. It helps us to make our relationships prior. It helps us to shape the world that we live in. And it is also to make decisions, to build the relationships and the shape the world we are living in. So it is basically, as I monitored out, like how we as a humans, how are we taking care of our mental health? How are we contributing to the society? How are we providing support to the people around us as well? So mental health is not just like, okay, fine, go whenever you're stressed, go talk to someone and take care of it. It's also been like, how are we using our strengths, building ourselves and building our own mental well-being and our own emotional well-being. So its mental health is again an integral part. So what are the determinants that happens with mental health? As I mentioned, for your own mental health, there are certain factors which helps you, which will kind of enhances your own well-being. So the three factors are, one is the biological factors, next is the psychological factors, then it's the social factors. Under biological factors, your own genetics, your age, your response, immune response, your nutrition, your disability. And the psychological factors are your attitudes, coping skills, emotions, behavior, personality, and social factors which comes with the social support, culture, wealth, religion, education, and work. So all these are connected. So all this, either it is biological and psychological, which helps you to maintain your temperament. Biological and social will help you to maintain, like if you are on any medication, how, if you are physically down, like how are you on medications, what kind of a support you are getting, so that will help us to grow, that will help us to recover. And to some extent, we all have one or the other levels of trauma, or we face the trauma to multiple areas, multiple times. How are we coping up with it? That's where the psychological and the social factors do come a role. So all three determinants together contributes our own mental health. So it's not just like only the physical part, or it's not just only the psychological part, it's not just only the social part. Rather, it's three things together contribute your own mental health. Our physical activities are also very important. Psychologically, how are we building our own attitudes, our own strengths are also important. And social factors per se is like our family, friends, the culture we are coming in, the career we are involved in, the education we are getting in. All this also contributes to our mental health. So these are the three determinants for our mental health per se. So we get to know what is mental health. So we all knew that that's how our mental health is going to function. Then why does someone cough falls into a disorder? So when it is called as a disorder, when it is called as a mental illness, and what is mental illness is something it's important for us to know. So mental health, so what is a mental health disorder? So mental health disorder, so if someone has all these determinants being failed, then they fall under a mental health disorder. Is that a mental health disorder? Or is it only the biological aspects that contribute to a mental health disorder, or is it only the psychological ones? No. So mental health disorder, if someone gets into mental health disorder, or if someone has the mental illness, it's the contribution of all three of it. So I'm just going to give you the definition of mental health disorder. A mental health disorder is characterized by a clinically significant disturbance in an individual's cognition, emotional regulation, or behavior. It is usually associated with distress or impairment in important areas of functioning. And there are many types of mental disorders. So mental disorder need not be only your psychological. It can also because how we function in our day-to-day life. If someone is not able to get up from a bed, if someone if it is making them a lot of effort to get up from the bed, what is contributing to him? Why is he unable to do it? Why does someone suddenly feel anxious or restless? Why do people feel restless in a social situations per se? What is happening to them? So all of this looks common to both of us, to all of us, but to some extent, it is also universal. And each one of us are very different in the way we function. Some of us will be able to handle the stress very well. For some of us, it is going to be difficult. So mental health, to some extent, are getting affected. It is affected, and when a person is still struggle to get out of it, is when the mental health issues become a mental health disorder. So a mental disorder is characterized by clinically significant disturbance in individual's cognition, which means like an individual's thought, and emotional regulation is per se like how a person having difficulty to handle the emotions. Emotion is not just like being low mood or being worried. It's also like sometimes people get elated and they may not be able to have a control towards it. Sometimes people do express an anger. Anger is a normal emotion and they're not able to handle it. And sometimes people face a distress, I mean, which they may not be able to handle the stress and they don't have a tolerance towards it. So how are we handling our emotional regulation? That's one part, and our behavior. So when a stressful situation happens, there's a thought that's coming in. I'm feeling this way and I'm not sure what to do. So then people get into an aspect of acting in certain way because to cope up with all their cognition and their emotions. So that is basically a mental disorder. And we always say that when, for an example, people used to say you are always getting angry for small, small, silly things. Why are you getting angry? We need to understand anger is also an emotion. When you are angry, it's not just like the event is creating, maybe like there might be some underlying issues. We need to learn how we have to express the anger in a better way rather than judging it. So this is one way, like even when an anger, there's a thought that's playing a role. Emotion is an anger, followed, and we sometimes struggle to manage an anger and followed by which we engage in certain behavior. So which means am I having a mental health disorder? Need not be, because for having a diagnosis, there is a certain criteria found to be, but we need to understand it's one of the red flag that we have in us, which means we need to learn how to manage our anger. So this is how we differentiate between a mental health issues and a mental health disorders. For a mental health disorder, mental disorder, when we want to have a diagnosis of it, there are certain criterias that we psychologists follow. One is like based on the ICD-10, based on the DSM-5. So these are the clinical tools that we have to make a diagnosis. But we need to understand in our mental health well-being, we need to understand how our thoughts are functioning, how our emotions are playing a role, and what is our own behavior. So these are the three important things which plays a main role for your mental health well-being. And when it is slightly on higher side is when we will look into a mental disorder. All right. And as it's also mentioned, it is usually associated with the stress. Yes, stress do play a role. Our environment do play a role. And adding to that, it's also some of our biological contributions are also present. Okay, so there are many types of mental disorders. I'm not going in detail to explain the each and every mental disorder, but I would like to highlight and give you a few inputs about what are the common mental disorders that we have. I mean, before that, also, I just want to give you a prevalence. According to WHO in 2018, 1 in 8 adults experience a mental health concern. And significantly and unfortunately, the suicidal attempts are increasing day by day. And globally, there may be 20 suicide attempts to every one death. and yet suicide accounts for more than 1 in every 100 deaths. So suicidal rates are getting increasing, and mental health issues are coming across predominantly, which is 1 in 8 adults having a mental health concern. And I also see that after pandemic and when we are in a lockdown is where all our emotions has been piled up and we're venting it out with our own family members. Work-life balance is coming across, work from home is coming across, kids have to be met with their online classes. So like it was a new normal, they said, but the new normal also comes with the new mental health issues that we had faced. But once the pandemic has kind of been become an endemic, we are getting to our usual self. But still, some of the mental health issues that rose up during the pandemic is still existing, which means like COVID had led to a lot of cognitive difficulties to some extent to some people, had led to like had changed the way the family functions, had changed the way how the children had been engaged more into an online activities, had changed the way, for example, especially when person who already having a vulnerable mental health issues when they were at the pandemic at home, their routine has been changed, their mood has been become elated. So there's a lot of mental health issues that come up, and it is easy quickly for someone who's normal to get into a usual normal. For a person who wasn't having a certain vulnerabilities from being a normal to being in a new normal and getting back to a normal, it's still a concern that's been existing. And the online platform is when the education is coming across children. Despite we don't want the children to be engaged in gadgets, but the online platform was the only tool for their education. So to certain level of getting attached to the gadgets are also coming across, substances are also coming across, anxieties, especially kids who have been like in a 2.5 or 4.5 when they were in pandemic and when they have to suddenly meet a person outside after 2 years, they get anxious. That applies for us also, even not for only for the children, even for us. Why I was accompanied, I was like accustomed to the online platform. Why do I have to suddenly talk? So there's certain level of an anxiety coming across. So it doesn't mean that all of us have a mental health disorders, but certain mental health issues, certain anxieties, certain panics, certain worries, certain addictions, these things had kind of been reinforced by COVID to some extent, and we are trying to accustom to it, and then we are trying to come back to our usual normal. Of course, it takes time, but we are all in an endemic right now. Hope it works well for us. But yes, but mental health disorders and its rise is a serious concern. Even in India also, where there was not a survey report had not come across yet, but then when I was working, I could see there's a lot of patients increase in enhance has been high. So mental health issues has to be treated adequately. Hence, I would also highlight you or get you to know what are the common mental health disorders people have. I mean, as I mentioned, it's very widespread. It is not treated and we don't have enough resource as well. So common mental health disorders are depression, anxiety and panic disorders, schizophrenia, substance use disorders, behavior addiction, personality disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So I'm not going in detail for explaining you all the disorders, but quickly to orient you, what are the common mental health disorders? When it comes to depression, it's basically a person who has a low mood, who's unable to do every activities, who's not able to get up from the bed, who's not even able to go and get the do the brushing, or daily routine has been significantly impaired. His sleep is high. He's someone who's not able to, who's constantly worrying and there's a constant crying spells. Depression has become so common these days that everyone would say that I'm depressed. Rather, it's kind of like a trending among the adolescents and for the young adults. Yes, you may be upset, you may be sad, but not always be depressed. Depression again comes with certain ways, which means like you feeling sad and worry is not depression. So remove that cliche and say depression is someone who has have a lot of effort to even to do a minute activities, who has difficulty in controlling their own crying behavior, and who's unable to do any of these activities. Probably someone may be stressed, but may not be depressed. Next is the anxiety and the panic disorders. So anxiety and panic disorders comes up in general, especially when someone have to present it in a public, or even someone who is generally anxious about everything, someone who's fear of having it anxious in a closed space, someone whenever they wanted to talk to someone, they feel anxious, even in the social situations. Anxiety and panic disorders are one such thing, and it has also become quite common, especially after the COVID. The third is the schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is again a person who has been completely not able to focus on themselves. They develop certain delusions, hallucinations. They don't have any emotions on their face. They're having a very disorganized speech. So that is a schizophrenia. However, it requires a proper clinical diagnosis. Substance use disorders are basically how use of an alcohol, dependence on an alcohol, dependence on a nicotine, dependence on a cannabis, dependence on basically on a various substances is a substance use disorder. And then the fifth one is a behavior addiction. Behavior addiction is slightly on a newer topic and which is quite common. As Dr. Sridevi also mentioned that how we sometimes just sit on a table and engage in our own mobile phones is also a biggest thing. So please get up and do a physical activity is what Dr. Sridevi mentioned. I appreciate that part. Yes, behavior addiction is more or less that. It's not that we are addicted only to the internet, but even to the platforms that is related to it, online platforms, like there is a Wikipedia addiction, there's like a social media addiction, there's a pornography addiction. How are we addicted to everything related to the internet, with the gadgets, gaming addiction, gambling, some of the things that had come across very for the numbers has been increased vastly, especially in the last 2 years. So that is what is a behavior addiction. So behavior addiction is not just like how many hours you are spending, what is the WHO guidelines for it. All of that is also considered. It's more or less same as substance use. And in fact, there are certain researchers that had find out that a person with a substance, a person who takes an alcohol has the same, has a cognitive deficits with attention, memory. A person with a behavior addiction also has a certain effects. The cognitive and our psychological function or a biological function is more or less the same. It's just the substance is just use of substance, and behavior is like use of a gadgets. So that's the only difference between substance use disorders and a behavior addiction. Okay, so it's not that behavior addiction is altogether one thing and substance use is altogether one thing. No, that's not it. Next is a personality disorders. Yes, we do fall, all of us form under 3 levels of clusters, cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C. We all have certain traits of clusters. Cluster A is basically someone who is odd, who's aloof, has a very bizarre behavior. Cluster B is someone who's very emotionally unstable, who's slightly on an antisocial perspective. And cluster C is someone who is very anxious, very perfect, very rigid, and very dependent on someone else. So in general, we all form under 3 clusters. We may have more or less the same traits, and but we don't. When it becomes a disorder, is like when the traits or when our types become so significant, it becomes a personality disorder. All right. And post-traumatic stress disorder is like a person who experiences significant trauma in the life, and the stress of facing the event has been carried forward for over a period of time. Then every time, whenever the person recalls that event, or whenever a person kind of experiences the same traumatic experience in some other way, then a person develop certain anxiety and stress to handle it, develop nightmares, develop flashbacks. So those are the post-traumatic stress disorder. So these are the common mental health disorders that we quite frequently see in our population, but there are various other disorders as well. So, which means there's also sexual disorders. There is also about with the children and adolescents. Each of these categories would be slightly different. So, even for the geriatric population, there is various other disorders, which also includes with dementia, sometimes which influence the Alzheimer's. It's not a mental health disorder; it's a neurological condition, but certain pseudo dementia are kind of the picture. And there's also something we have in our own population is also dissociative disorders. So, but those are some of the things which are existing, but with that also we see in our everyday lives. But these are quite common disorders, hence I'm highlighting it. So I have just given you an overview about it, but what are the signs? Common signs that is being seen in general across all the disorders is what I'm going to explain. So one is a person who have with the common mental disorders, and these are the common signs. If the person has some of these signs, then we have to see whether the person is what is happening with the patient. So whenever if you notice someone who's having all this signs or having one or four or five of these criterias, please talk to him. Get to understand what is happening to him. What are the issues he's having? Be understanding them, be trying to help them is the biggest thing that we could do for another person. That is what we call it as a support system. So support system is not just only what we receive, but also what we give to others also matters. So I'm just going to read about what are the common signs. One is excessive worrying or fear, feeling excessively sad or low, having a confused thinking or a problems concentrating on learning, extreme mood changes, including uncontrollable highs or feelings of euphoria. Euphoria is what I mentioned. Sometimes people may be suddenly low, or sometimes people may be extremely happy. That is part. Next, prolonged or strong feelings of irritability or anger, avoiding friends and social activities, difficulties understanding or relating to other people, changes in sleep habits or feeling tired and low energy, changes in eating habits such as increased hunger or a lack of appetite, overuse of substance like alcohol or drugs. I also would want to add use of gadgets online is also something which we have to consider. These are in general the common signs for most of the mental health disorders. So if you come across anyone, please do provide support, let them get treated. So how is our mental health disorders and well-being are connected? So if a person has a high level of mental well-being, that's on the to my left, a person with no mental health condition are more likely to experience a higher levels of mental health well-being, which means they may have no symptoms of mental health conditions. A low level of well-being, which is on the down, a person with no mental health condition can still experience a low levels of mental well-being. Yes, it's possible. A person may not have a mental health condition, just like anger management. It's a mental health condition, may not be on a disorder level. So that is may have the which means the person has a low level of mental well-being. Next, on a higher level of a person with a mental health condition can still experiences severe levels of mental well-being, which means may have still have a severe symptoms of mental health conditions. And a person with mental health condition is more likely to have experience a lower levels of mental health well-being. So it's like if you see a well-being of how we have and how the mental health condition persists, it's like a interconnected. So we may have to understand it. So it's not just because you have been mentally stable, you've been functioning well, you have been coping well, you have been managing the stress well. It's not that you don't get a mental health disorder, it's a condition. So anything can trigger. So we are all vulnerable, one or the other ways to have this mental life balance. This can make the balance can sometimes go affect our mental well-being so much that it will affect, which can lead to mental health condition. Otherwise, on the other side, positively, it also enhances our own mental health well-being. All right. So all this while we spoke about mental health. Mental health we spoke about mental health disorders, we get to know about it. Now we have to see mental wellness, how you as a person can enhance your mental wellness. So I'm just going to give you a few inputs towards it. Probably there's a larger inputs, but whichever is relevant for our current practice is something which I'm going to give it to you guys. Okay, so before to understand, so what is mental wellness? Mental wellness is an internal resource that help us think, feel, connect, and function. It is an active process that help us to build resilience, grow, and flourish. Mental wellness is a resource because it is dynamic, renewable, and positive. It's also a process that we must engage in proactively. It is not a static state of being. It's not being positive. It's positive, but not completely positive, but how we can build, grow, and how we are building resilience, how we're being compassionate about our own selves, how we love others, how are we going to take care of our own self, all contributes to the mental wellness. So it has several dimensions. So some of it is include our thinking, which is our mental dimension, which means our thoughts. Next is connection. How are we getting support from others? How are we giving support to others, which means the connection. Getting to know your feeling, understanding your emotions. Sometimes we do repress our emotions so significantly. Yes, repression is one of the defense we follow, but not always. Expressing the emotions are good, but how are we going to express it is make sense, is something we need to work on. The next is the functioning, which is our psychological domain. So using all this, how are we functioning attributes to our mental wellness. So some of the things which you can do, which you can practice on your everyday lives is staying positive. That Sridevi also highlighted about positive thinking. Yes, positive vibes is good, but sometimes we maintaining a positivity at all aspects may be difficult, but understand there's a support available. So sometimes there is a dips that we may face. We can come in. That's what you. How are you going to handle your stress? How are you going to bring your resilience comes in? So stay positive and practice gratitude every day. You can say how thankful you are to your own self, how thankful you are to the society. That's what is gratitude. If you practice every day, that would make changes, which means like gratitude will help us to connect with your own self and also to connect with the others and engage in physical activities. Then the fourth is like understand what is your meaning and purpose of life. So what are you trying to achieve? What are your own goals? What are your own dreams? What has been expected on you? Adding all to this, you know what is your meaning and purpose that you wanted to build in and connect with others. Please stay connect with people around. Social support is something we can build upon. So if there is no social support that you are there, there is always a professional help. When you're stressed and you're unable to manage any of these activities and you're so stressed out, please seek a professional help and you can build your own coping skills. There is coping skills is something I think we all struggle and how are we coping with the stress? We still functioning, but somewhere the stress is not going away. So you can build your own coping skills, which would be helpful for you. Healthier coping skills, not in a maladaptive way of with the substances. Probably a healthy coping skills will help you to enhance your mental wellness. So this is again, I just want you to highlight. So whenever there's any stressful situations, please take a deep breath and relax. That will give you calm down your anxiety. Look into your five senses whenever you're stressed. Again, not just deep breathing, probably looking at your five senses will help you. And be in touch with your thoughts and feelings. So whenever things going wrong and you're finding it, I'm unable to manage it, please understand what are your thoughts and feelings. Probably having a time down, journaling your thoughts and feelings will help you to understand, okay, this is my problem. I need to solve this. Let me work on this way. That is one way of developing your coping skills. So why is mental health important? So mental health, just like how physical health is important, mental health is also equally important because it will help us to cope with the stresses in the life. It will also help us to be physically healthy. It will help us to have good relationships. It will help us to have a meaningful contributions that we can give to the society. It will also helps us to work productively, and it will help us to understand our own abilities, strengths, and our own negatives, our own weakness, and how we can build up on our abilities, everything. So mental health is equally important for physical health as well. This is just a brief orientation to you all guys. Like mental health issues affect everyone. It can happen to everyone. So there's a survey that had been taken and it had found that 80% had agreed that mental health issues can happen to anybody. You and me can still have a mental health issues. Whenever you notice that you have certain mental health issues, acknowledge your feelings and try to connect with others. Yes, we may have our dips, ups and downs, but whenever you're down, and if you feel that you have these kind of a common signs, or if you have noticed someone in your community or in your workplace or your own friend circle or in your own family members have some of these common signs of mental health concerns, please talk to them, get them treated. That's the contribution you can give it to your family, to yourself, and also to the community. So if you felt any of these, if you have been eating or sleeping too little or too much, if you're having a low energy, or you're feeling unusually confused or scared, hearing voices or believing things that are future, that are untrue, and inability to perform daily tasks, if you notice any of these, or if you have noticed these pattern in your friends, families, or at any point of at your workplace or at your colleagues, anywhere or in the community, don't um, don't hesitate to seek professional help. We do take care of our physical health very well to some extent. We fail to take our mental health as well. So seeking professional help is which definitely help you, or it will help you to guide in a positive way, so that you don't having a mental trauma later in your life, or your family members or your friends or your colleagues or whoever it is not into that extent. So if you have any questions, I'm open to it, but as Dr. Pratibha mentioned, that probably later also I can take care of the questions that is coming across to me. But mental health is a core aspect of our physical health as well. As I also introduced, mind and body are interconnected. Let's work towards the healthier health in this case. Thank you. If you can write to me you can message to my phone number, and you can also mail to me if you have any queries. You can also reach me at therapheal.in as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. That was a wonderful explanation and presentation. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite our next resource person, Dr. Angeline ma'am, with the hot topic of musculoskeletal fitness. Welcome, ma'am. Angeline ma'am is an assistant professor at Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research. Ma'am actually started her career by starting her Bachelor's of Physiotherapy at Ramachandra College and her Master's also in the same, and now pursuing her PhD. Ma'am was working as a sports physiotherapist at FOSMAT in December 1998 and started a tutor in September 2000 at Ramchandra College, and pursuing as a assistant professor from June 2008. Ma'am, areas of research expertise are musculoskeletal physiotherapy, hand rehabilitation, and rheumatology. Ma'am's advanced, awards and recognitions were Physiotherapy Education Fund Medal, Gold Medal for Ma'am has won the Gold Medal for the best outgoing student in MPT, Orthopedics and Rheumatology in the year of 2008. Ma'am has worked as a resource person for many of the conferences. In that, I would like to mention few resource persons for the in-house training program for ICU nurses on ergonomics of ICU nurses, and total knee replacement recent trends in rehabilitation in March 2013, and therapeutic exercise and massage 2016, and resource person as in the soft tissue mobilization in 2017 and 19. Ma'am has done various publications that I would like to mention few, which ma'am has done for this Indian Journal of Public Health Research and Development. Myofascial trigger point release therapy in the management of plantar heel pain. And another journal, physiotherapy following external tendon reconstruction in Zone 5A case study for the same Indian Journal of Public Health and Research and Development. Ma'am, research guidance is a very vast, and she has done for more than 15 research guidance. And ma'am is a membership in committee of Audit Committee of Faculty of Physiotherapy, Srihar, and NSS Unit 1 Program Officer, Srihar. And ma'am has completed many funded projects. In that, myofascial trigger point release therapy in the management of plantar heel pain in 2016-17, and impact of knee osteoarthritis on physical performance and quality of life in obese patients in 2017-2018. An association of physical activity and fear avoidance belief in subjects with chronic knee osteoarthritis in the year 2019-2020. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll share my screen. A very good afternoon to everyone. On the 75th anniversary year of WHO, I wish you all a very happy World Health Day. Now, I thank upon Dr. Pradeepa ma'am, Dr. Janani madam, and Dr. Chandralekha of Kanjipuram IAP Women's Health for giving me this opportunity to have this platform and speak about musculoskeletal fitness. So today I'm going to talk about, or we are going to discuss about musculoskeletal fitness and health, and how musculoskeletal fitness affects or has got implications on the health status of an individual. Yeah. The World Health Organization suggests that health is a state of complete physical, mental, or social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So here, today, I'm going to talk about physical health. Dr. Archana madam spoke very well about, or gave very beautiful introduction and ways of maintaining mental health. Today, I'm going to speak about physical health and how it affects an individual. So now one aspect of physical health is the musculoskeletal system. What is physical health? It encompasses the musculoskeletal system, which consists of this musculoskeletal system consists of, or musculoskeletal fitness consists of three components: muscular strength, endurance, and flexibility. If muscle strength, endurance, and flexibility are not maintained, musculoskeletal fitness is then compromised. If musculoskeletal fitness is compromised, then it affects, or it has got a negative impact on one's physical health and well-being. So we understand that there is a relationship between musculoskeletal fitness and physical health. So let us see, what is this musculoskeletal fitness? Musculoskeletal fitness, as I've already told you, is a multidimensional construct. It consists of, or it comprises of integrated function of muscle strength, muscle endurance, and muscle power. Most of the time we speak about physical fitness, but physical fitness encompasses musculoskeletal fitness, and we are not very much worried about the status of the muscle strength, muscle endurance, or muscle power. See, this enables a person, an individual, to do work against one's own body weight or an external resistance. The link between musculoskeletal fitness and health in adults includes health outcomes like personal independence, quality of life, cardiovascular disease, risk of fracture, cognitive and functional ability. So now, although the relationship between musculoskeletal fitness and these health outcomes exists, it is not extensively studied. It was very surprising to note that there is very less research regarding musculoskeletal fitness and physical health outcomes. All dimensions, of musculoskeletal fitness, like muscle strength, muscle power, or endurance and flexibility, actually describes an individual's overall level of musculoskeletal fitness. Rather than, now we should understand that if we are going to consider the musculoskeletal fitness of an individual, we will have to assess these three dimensions, especially strength, endurance, power, and of course, flexibility, all these dimensions should be individually assessed, and intervention should be considered for overall musculoskeletal fitness. So now, when we talk about musculoskeletal fitness, we do not go into this aspects of musculoskeletal fitness like the power, the endurance, the strength, the flexibility, because this is very important, because this affects the overall physical performance of an individual. So now, does musculoskeletal fitness only affects all these things? No, musculoskeletal fitness affects, or it has got a direct relationship to the cardiovascular disease also. So this musculoskeletal fitness, is very important in reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease. See how musculoskeletal fitness is related to cardiovascular disease or cardiovascular status. So now let us see how it is. So in improvements in muscle strength, endurance from resistance training reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease. So increase in strength and endurance improves blood lipid profiles, it decreases blood pressure, it improves insulin sensitivity, and it increases or there is an increase in energy expenditure, which reduces the abdominal obesity. So if all these things happen, then the risk of cardiovascular disease can be minimized. So now, every individual should participate, or they should be fit. How? They should be doing strength training for 7 hours, around 4 to 7 hours per week, to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, hypercholesteremia, etc. So now, this musculoskeletal fitness it determines the quality of life, of a health-related quality of life of an individual. How this happens? Quality of life encompasses physiological, psychological, emotional, and spiritual well-being. High levels of musculoskeletal fitness is an indicator of high quality of life. So now, if your musculoskeletal fitness is good, then your quality of life is good. Yes, high levels of musculoskeletal fitness prevents chronic illnesses, especially this non-communicable diseases. So now see how important it is to maintain musculoskeletal fitness. So we should be strong enough, we should be flexible, we should be, we should have that endurance to carry out our daily life of activities. All these things will improve the quality of life in an individual. So there are several indicators for quality of life. So now let's talk about quality of health-related quality of life. There are several indicators for health-related quality of life, namely the functional status, the psychological well-being, the morbidity, and mortality. What is this functional status? This refers to the ability to do activities of daily living. See, now you want to be physically active, you should be able to do all the activities of daily living, isn't it? See, now many elderly people have very reduced functional status. So they live near or below the functional threshold of musculoskeletal fitness. This is a pressing problem over the whole world, especially in India. The old people, who are above 60, the number is rising, but the quality of life is very poor. Health-related quality of life is very poor. What is the reason? Why they have less independence, functional independence? It could be directly related to reduced musculoskeletal fitness. So there are several determinants of this functional status, namely the bone health, independent living and disability, fall and fracture prevention. What is this bone health? Let us see. So now, musculoskeletal fitness is related to bone mineral density, or musculoskeletal fitness is directly related to our bone health. Osteopenia, which is reduced bone mineral density, and osteoporosis, these are so much related and yet so much different. So osteopenia is reduced bone mineral density, And osteoporosis is again reduced bone mineral density with bone porosity. These are poor indicators of, these are the indicators of poor health and are directly associated with the negative health outcomes. So now, when you talk about the aging population, it is huge now. And aged people, they have poor bone mineral density. And take postmenopausal women. They are at high risk of reduced bone mineral density. Yes, longitudinal studies have proved that bone health will improve if you do strength training. So if muscle strength, which is a component of musculoskeletal fitness, is undertaken, or if strengthening exercises are given, that reduces that improves the bone health. So now a strong predictor of bone mineral density is a cross-sectional area of the muscle. Now this talks about how it is related. If the muscle strength improves, naturally you're loading the bone gets strong. So now the cross-sectional, when the cross-sectional area of the muscle is high, you understand that the bone mineral density is good. That is how it becomes a strong predictor. This muscle cross-sectional area becomes the strong predictor of bone mineral density. And as I told you, this musculoskeletal fitness is again directly related to independent living, and is directly related to disability. What is that? Musculoskeletal fitness or high levels of musculoskeletal fitness will enhance an individual's ability to carry out ADL. So most of our patients, we come across lots of patients as physiotherapists in our clinical practice. Almost all of them say that they have affected activities of daily living. What could be the reason? It could be because of reduced musculoskeletal fitness, which is leading to injury. So if you want to prevent musculoskeletal injuries, then this musculoskeletal fitness should be improved. So now, especially again in aging population, this musculoskeletal fitness is always a concern. So if you want to do activities of daily living independently, then, or for long periods of time without any problem, then this musculoskeletal fitness is very important. Now we understand that there is a relationship between muscle strength, muscle endurance, and flexibility on independent living. See, now everybody wants to have a very independent lifestyle, isn't it? Even old people, they have started living on their own. Most of the time, they don't have that many people around to take care of them. So now, if you want to have an independent living, then the musculoskeletal fitness is very important. Talking about musculoskeletal fitness, muscle strength. As I told you, muscle strength is a component of musculoskeletal fitness. So now this muscle strength is very important for independent living. What is this muscle strength? High levels of muscle strength is accompanied with greater capacity of performance in activities of daily living. So if muscle strength is very much reduced, then activities of daily living will be severely affected. Strength exercises reduces the effects of muscle mass reduction in elderly. So now, if you have to do muscle strengthening exercises, the muscle mass improves. If the muscle strengthening exercises are given, then it reduces the muscle mass or it improves the muscle mass in elderly, which may increase the performance of activities of daily living. And the strengthening exercises also improves bone health, and it reduces the risk of falls. This risk of fall, again, we see elderly people, geriatric population, especially have high risk of falls. The main reason is reduced muscle strength in the lower extremities, or it could be because of reduced bone health. Disability will increases with aging due to decrease in muscle strength. This is established. So if a person is disabled, whether he's young or old, then it's understood that he has got reduced muscle strength. There is a 12 to 15% decrease in muscle strength every decade. Every 10 years, when you see, there is a decline in muscle strength in an individual's life. You know, how much of reduction is there? 12 to 15%. It is an alarming percentage, I say. So now the loss of muscle strength actually occurs at a faster rate in lower extremity than in upper extremity. Again, this is a concern. If muscle strength reduces in lower extremity, then the person disability status will be very high. The person might have high risk of falls, resulting in injury. So, and one more thing, loss of strength would be slightly greater in women than in men. So, loss of muscle strength with aging is associated always with reduced muscle mass and decrease in size and number of muscle fibers, reduction in fast twitch fibers, and loss of motor units. Now we understand the importance of strengthening the muscles for an independent living and living without any disability. This decreased muscle strength, especially in the lower body, reduces the functional status of an individual. That emphasizes the need of the hour. And coming to muscle endurance, musculoskeletal fitness encompasses muscle endurance. What is this muscle endurance? We spoke about strength, the ability of the muscle to produce forceful contraction. But what is endurance? Endurance is about how a muscle can work for a longer period of time with less amount of fatigue. Why this muscle endurance is very important for independent living, which is a predictor of physical health? The many activities of daily living requires muscle endurance than muscle strength. So performance of almost all the activities of daily living will be largely related to muscle endurance only. Research reports say that endurance of trunk muscle is a strong predictor of mobility and perceived health. How a person perceives about his physical health depends upon the endurance of the muscles. Okay, therefore, muscle endurance is directly related to the functional independence also. So now we saw about muscle strength, muscle endurance, and now muscle power, which is again very important for musculoskeletal fitness. What is muscle power? So we use muscle power and strength interchangeably. Muscle strength is different, muscle power is different. When you talk about muscle power, it is a combination of muscle strength and speed. Why this muscle power is important in an individual? For maintaining physical health. Muscle power is important for optimal performance. You take a sporting activity, you need muscle power, you need power in the muscles. And talking about muscle power, it is most important in for maintaining optimal performance than personal health status. But still, muscle power is related to functional limitations, especially in older people. Next, the women. Women have significant less power in lower extremity than men. So loss of muscle power again is directly related to functional ability. Why this functional ability is very important? We have to maneuver the surroundings. We have to do the work, do our daily life of daily daily activities like climbing stairs, walking up the stairs. We have to walk fast. We have to sometimes run to catch a bus. For everything, this muscle power is very important. When there is muscle power loss, there will be a decline in the functional ability of an individual. So now people have, sometimes you have seen people, having very much difficulty in climbing the stairs. The easy way out is taking a lift elevator. So now if you have reduced muscle power, all these activities of daily living will be very much affected. So now with this, I emphasize the importance of having adequate strength, endurance, or muscle power to maintain optimal physical health actually. So take patience. In patients, post-surgical mobility very much depends upon lower extensor muscle power. We always look for when a person goes for surgery, the next thing we after surgery, if everything is vital, sustainable, and everything, we as musculoskeletal physiotherapists, we talk about mobility. We patients go for surgery for early mobility only to retain or regain the functional status. It is very important that the patient should be mobilized out of bed as early as possible. But most of the patients have difficulty in becoming mobile, walking. Why? The reason is lower leg extensor power. So now when we do see patients, always think about lower leg extensor power. Let it be quadriceps power or hip extensor power. This power is very important to improve the mobility status of any individual, especially patients who had undergone surgery. This is very important. And then comes flexibility. Most of the time, we think that we are strong and flexible, but not. Usually, it is not actually. Flexibility is also related to independent living. The more flexible you are, the more independent you are, the less the disability. Good flexibility results in reduced risk of injuries. Why as healthcare professionals, most of the time we treat patients who have injuries, isn't it? Musculoskeletal injuries, and their performance is affected. So this why the patients land up with the musculoskeletal injuries? Probably it is because of reduced flexibility of the musculoskeletal structures, which affects their activities of daily living. So reduced flexibility is again associated with reduced functional status. So now what are the functional activities which get affected because of reduced flexibility? There will be lower walking velocity, there will be increased reliance upon walking aids. If there is reduced flexibility, patient will have difficulty in climbing stairs, or patient will have difficulty from sitting to standing from the chair. Now you find all these things, you understand that the individual has got flexibility issues. Thus, reduced flexibility is related to reduced health status. When we talk about health status, we do not consider flexibility at all, but understand that flexibility is very important for very optimal performance. Reduction in mobility may also result from low levels of flexibility. So now a person is less mobile. What could be the reason? Is it because of reduced muscle strength? Is it because of reduced muscle power? Is it because of reduced endurance in the muscles? Could be, but always consider flexibility issues. If a individual has reduction in mobility, think about flexibility of hip and pelvic soft tissue structures. Why? Because this reduced flexibility in hip and pelvis reduces step length. It reduces walking speed. Reduced flexibility results in high risk of injuries in individuals. Thereby, it affects and individuals' independent living. So now, flexibility is as important as muscle strength, muscle endurance, and muscle power. So now, next coming to the musculoskeletal fitness and prevention of falls and fracture. How falls and fractures are related to musculoskeletal fitness? We know the relationship actually. So now, physical activity that improves muscle strength, power, endurance, and balance reduces the risk of falls. Now, risk of falls. patients coming with trivial trauma um, to our centers, old people, they land up with fractures. They say that I had a fall. I don't know, just I had a fall, or I just slipped out of a step when I was just climbing down the stairs. I just slipped one step and I landed up with a fracture, fracture of femur, the neck of femur. Why? It could be because of reduced musculoskeletal fitness. So muscle dysfunction and reduced mobility are strong predictors of falls in elderly. Lower extremity, again and again I emphasize, lower extremity muscle power. This lower extremity muscle power is related to higher risk of falls and fractures. Now we understand the action plan, what interventions or what to look for in our patients to improve musculoskeletal fitness. Now, reduced flexibility and reduced muscle power results in higher rate of falls and fractures. Then this musculoskeletal fitness is related to psychological functioning of a person. What is this? You give strength training or resistance training that improves muscle strength and endurance. It also enhances psychological well-being. How it enhances psychological well-being? It elevates the mood state. It helps with the perceived anger, tension, anxiety, and self-efficacy. The anxiety levels will drop down if the patient does resistance training. That's what studies say. So, and not only strength or resistance training, even muscle endurance training or muscle endurance is again a strong predictor of perceived health, social functioning, physical function, and mental health. You improve your muscle endurance, the psychological function of the person improves. Individuals who have reduced flexibility shows poor perceptions of health. Do you believe this? When you talk about musculoskeletal, again I keep repeating this. Musculoskeletal fitness includes strength, power, and flexibility. Even individuals who have reduced flexibility, they show poor perceptions of health. They think that they are not healthy. Improve the flexibility of the person, which is very important. And coming to the morbidity and mortality. So how this musculoskeletal fitness is related to this morbidity and mortality? Elevated musculoskeletal fitness in terms of strength, power, flexibility reduces the risk of premature death in individuals. So now imagine long life. You will be blessed with long life if you have good elevated musculoskeletal fitness. So now we need to take action. Our physical health becomes very important. As we are celebrating our this World Health Day, we should find ways of enhancing our physical health as well as mental health, isn't it? So now this musculoskeletal fitness prevents premature death. That's what studies say. Individuals, see, they did a study. The study, they found out that individuals with reduced grip strength, hand grip strength. Now we use a hand anemometer to find out the grip strength, of the hand muscles, which talks about the hand function. Individuals with reduced grip strength have greater incidence of chronic illnesses and greater chances of disability. I will see how this strength is directly related to disability or chronic illnesses. Patients who have or individuals who have chronic illnesses have have compromised musculoskeletal fitness. Low strength, endurance, and power is all an indicator of, all these are indicators of all-cause mortality also. It is not only morbidity, mortality also. So if there is going to be reduced strength, power, endurance, it all indicates that there is going to be, that is one reason for all-cause mortality. Studies say that this study was done in men, but still understand that this is very important. Thus, reduction in musculoskeletal fitness is related to increase in morbidity and increase in premature mortality. That is, that premature term should be understood. Everybody wants to live long. If you want to live long, improve your musculoskeletal fitness. So now I've spoken about the strength, endurance, power, flexibility, which encompasses, these are the musculoskeletal fitness components. What does evidence say? To summarize everything. So what does evidence say? So now it says that muscle strengthening improves. There is a strong evidence to support an increase in bone health. You see 3 arrows up there. You understand that there is a strong evidence to support an increase in bone health because of muscle strength, because of strengthening exercises. And this muscle strength improves or very much increases independent living, or there is moderate evidence that muscle strength reduces the frequency of falls, and minimal evidence for how muscle strength reduces fractures. Same with endurance. There is moderate evidence to support an increase in bone health, increase in independent living, reduction in falls and fractures because of endurance training. When you talk about muscle power and flexibility, you understand that there is less of evidence related to this, but for an independent living, you need more power, muscle power and flexibility. That also reduces falls and fracture. Talk about psychological well-being. You do all strengthening, endurance, power exercises, flexibility exercises, everything. There's moderate evidence saying that everything improves the psychological well-being of a person. The morbidity and mortality, musculoskeletal fitness, if you're fit enough, there will be a reduction in the morbid status and mortality. Of course, there is very less evidence, but still it holds good. So how do I do this? How do I improve my musculoskeletal fitness? How do I improve my physical health? So how do you do? A few points to add upon. So strength and flexibility exercises. Do exercises. Exercise is the need of the heart. Exercises is medicine. Yes, if you want to live a good long life, do exercises. Always exercise is the mantra. Exercise is the order of the day. So to improve musculoskeletal fitness, you will have to do strength and flexibility exercises, which improves muscle strength, bone density, it improves balance, it reduces joint pain, So what are the strengthening exercises? Any exercise or any activity that makes the muscle work harder than usual is a strengthening exercise. This increases muscle strength, size, power. The strengthening exercises improves muscle strength, size, power, and endurance. And for these strengthening exercises, you use either your body weight or you use gadgets. You work against resistance. Resistance could be offered by a dumbbell, a resistance band. Yes. How much to do? How long to do the strengthening exercises to improve musculoskeletal fitness? 2 sessions, WHO, these are WHO recommendations. 2 sessions or more of muscle strengthening exercises a week is recommended. Every individual, to improve your musculoskeletal fitness, to improve your mental fitness, you will have to do at least 2 sessions of strengthening exercises for a week or in a week. What are the exercises which should be done for to improve muscle, to strengthen the muscle? You can lift weights, you can work with resistance bands, you can do heavy gardening, you can climb stairs, you can do an uphill walking, you can do cycling, which is a moderate loading exercises to a lower extremity joint, which is more beneficial than walking or jogging. Dancing, push-ups, sit-ups, squats can be done. And especially you can do yoga to improve muscle strength. And talking about muscle strength, we just saw the exercises, what can be done, and the recommendations. What are the exercises which could be done for preventing falls? So now you will have to, in elderly population, you will have to prevent. It's better to prevent than later to suffer, having a fracture. Now, what are the exercises which are good for preventing falls? Exercises that improve lower extremity strength. As I told you, lower extremity strength, power, endurance is very much important for reducing falls, isn't it? So exercises which can improve leg strength, balance, and coordination can help people maintain and improve their muscle strength. That thereby you can avoid falls as they get older. So what are the leg strengthening exercises? What does evidence say? What are the strengthening exercises which can be included? Tai Chi. There is a large amount of literature regarding Tai Chi nowadays. So Tai Chi exercises, yoga, dance, walking up the stairs, hiking, lifting weights, lower extremity strengthening exercises will all prevent falls. Now, what are the benefits of this strengthening exercises and flexibility exercises? It will increase bone strength. It will reduce muscle loss, which is associated with aging. It reduces chances of falling. Health professionals believe that improving flexibility can improve posture, reduce aches and pains, and lowers risk of injury. Good flexibility can also help to continue carrying out activities of daily living. How often should you do these exercises? It is, I've already told you that you do 2 or more days a week when it comes for strengthening exercises. But when it comes for flexibility exercises, there is not much of research which has happened there. So no specific amount of time is recommended for flexibility training, but it can take around 20 minutes. You can take around 20 minutes or so. So now exercises should be performed to the point at which that would be difficult to do another repetition without. And what is the optimal level of doing exercises? A person should find it difficult to do one more repetition without help. That is the optimal level. Now you can do exercises within your own considering your own limitations, which could be easy for you. It is not like that. You do exercises where you will not be able to. What is the optimal level? You should not be able to do one more set of exercise or one more repetition without others' help is the optimal level. So what is that repetition? Repetition is one complete movement of an activity. One complete exercise is one repetition, like lifting a weight or doing one push-up or one sit-up. You will have to do, when you do exercises, a set of exercises, you will have to do, or you will have to do 8 to 12 repetitions for each activity or for each set. So every exercise should be done for 12 times. So that if you do 12 times, for example, that becomes one set. So try to do at least 2 sets of muscle strengthening activities to gain more benefits, or do 3 sets also. So remember to start gradually and build up over periods of weeks. If nothing happens in a day, there are no specific recommendations for how much time should be spent on flexibility. Do it at least for 20 minutes. And do we include aerobic exercises to improve musculoskeletal fitness? Yes. For general health, try to do at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity a week. That is what WHO recommends, as well as muscle strengthening activities for 2 days a week. So now altogether you should be doing 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity in a week. But if you are doing vigorous intensity aerobic activity, one should be able to get all the week's aerobic and muscle strengthening requirements from 75 minutes of activity. So what are the aerobic exercises which one can do to improve musculoskeletal fitness? So now you can do, there are a list of aerobic exercises which can be done. But the question is whether aerobic exercises include an element of strength. When you do aerobic exercises, does muscle strength improves? Yes, of course. Yes, some aerobic exercises, if performed at vigorous intensity, will strengthen your muscles. What are the exercises which one can do to improve the aerobic capacity? These exercises are circuit training, dancing, martial arts, football, hockey, and rugby. All the recreational activity also holds good. So now, all said and done, or we have discussed about how musculoskeletal fitness is important to one's physical health and mental health. And to improve musculoskeletal fitness, you will have to consider strengthening exercises, flexibility exercises, muscle power exercises, endurance exercises. Um, this particular musculoskeletal fitness is very important, or it is the order of the day. Now, if you want to have a healthy living, you talk about health for all, then health encompasses physical and mental health. You will have to follow this. It is very important to follow all the guidelines. So what is now adding a few points about how India, government of India takes initiatives in improving this musculoskeletal wellness, or how it takes initiatives in improving the physical health. So now Government of India has launched Fit India movement, as we all know, isn't it? So Fit India movement was launched on 29th August 2019 by Honorable Prime Minister with a view to make fitness, musculoskeletal fitness, an integral part of our daily Indian lives. What is the mission of the movement? See, even government takes lots of initiatives to improve this physical health. So here, one such movement is Fit India movement. The mission of this movement is to bring about behavioral changes and move towards a more physically active lifestyle. So now Fit India proposes to undertake various initiatives, and I have listed the objectives of the Fit India movement. So now we will have to follow all these things. We should be having these objectives, or we should take initiatives. When you talk about health for all, then this is how we take the health, physical health to everyone. You will have to spread awareness on fitness and various physical activities that promote fitness through focused campaigns. One such you should be arranging focus campaigns. You should take it to the public. You should create an awareness. You should encourage indigenous sporting activities, and you should take this musculoskeletal fitness to schools, colleges, universities, not only to the educated population. You should be taking it to the panchayats, the villages, to the depths of the Indian population. You should create a platform for citizens of India to share information. You should drive awareness, and you should encourage sharing of personal fitness stories. This is how we could improve the musculoskeletal fitness, where health for all happens. On conclusion, we understand that high levels of musculoskeletal fitness is associated with positive health status. Individuals with high musculoskeletal fitness have overall high quality of life. If you want to improve your quality of health related quality of life, improve your musculoskeletal fitness. Individuals, those who indulge in recreation activities, offset disuse related diseases. So now all the disuse related diseases can be withheld if you indulge in the recreational activities. So musculoskeletal fitness is an important and inadequately appreciated component of our, as I told you in the beginning, this is inadequately appreciated part, this musculoskeletal fitness. We will have to appreciate the importance of the musculoskeletal fitness, because musculoskeletal fitness leads to overall health and well-being. So wellness as it applies to strength and conditioning has numerous benefits. So as healthcare professionals, we need to understand this. So now musculoskeletal fitness should become a part of everyday's life. See now, carrying groceries, walking up and down the stairs, playing sports are all examples of how musculoskeletal fitness is important. If you lack musculoskeletal fitness, you will not be able to climb up the stairs. You will not be able to reach your home, which is in the second floor. You cannot be able to do gardening. You will not be able to do grocery shopping. Everything, you will not be able to indulge in sporting activities, recreational sporting activities. So understand musculoskeletal fitness is important. It is needed to take on a daily task of life without undue fatigue. So this musculoskeletal fitness, when it is high, then you will be able to work tirelessly. Your performance will be enhanced. The longer a person is able to maintain musculoskeletal fitness, the longer they will remain an independent person in society, continuing to an old age. So now you should be a useful, an independent person in the society. For that, this is very much required. I'm concluding my speech on this. I wish health for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. Once again, I would like to thank all our resource persons for giving a wonderful performance and presentation for this webinar on health and fitness. I would spread IAPWC Tamil Nadu Kanchipuram district special thanks to Faculty of Physiotherapy, Srihar, faculties and staff, and special thanks to the principal, Dr. Anthony Leo Azar sir. I would like to thank all the delegates for the participation. And on this World Health Day, I would like to share some of my thoughts that let's stay active to make a healthy family. Ma'am, you can close your screen, ma'am. Which will lead to a healthy world. Let's be an example for making a healthy world. Wish you all a World Health Day. Thank you. On this special webinar on this World Health Day, once again, I would like to thank our mentors, Dr. Sanjeev K. Jha sir, IAP President, Dr. Ruchivashni ma'am, IAP Treasurer and National Head of IAPWC, and Dr. Janani ma'am, our Tamil Nadu State Coordinator, and Radha Balachandran ma'am, our Joint Coordinator, for making this webinar happen. And thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pratibha ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Dr.
Pratibha, madam.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I think there is no doubts from our delegates. If there is any doubts, you can come through the chat. I think there is no doubt, because all the presentations were clear. So once
There
again,
is one in the YouTube chat, which was asking for how many hours of sleep is needed for good mental health.
Mental health. Archana ma'am, I think the question is for you.
Okay, for a good sleep, you need an average of 7 to 8 hours for an adults per se. And for kids, it's from again 8 to 12 hours or 8 to 10 hours for the kids. And elderly population also is the same number as for the kids as well. So in specific for an adult, it's between 7 to 8.
Thank you.
At least if this is not possible, 7 to 8 hours. At least I think hope we'll have a 6 hours sleep.
I understand, considering the work and everything, and having a work-life balance is hectic, but at least let's push to have at least 6.5, not less than that.
Thank you, Archana ma'am. I would
Thank
once again like to thank all the resource persons and the faculties of Ramachandra University, and special thanks to our principal and to our mentors, Dr. Sanjeev K. Jha sir, IAP president, and Dr. Ruchi Vaishnavi ma'am, IAP treasurer and national head of IAP WC, and Dr. Janni ma'am, our Tamil Nadu state coordinator, and Dr. Radha Balachandran ma'am, our joint coordinator, for giving us this opportunity to make this webinar happen. We'll come with another interesting webinar as early as possible. And thank you, everyone. Let's
Thank
make
you.
India fit. Fit India.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.